Hi everybody, Rob Keys here. I'm just driving home from Tim Hortons where I was working the last hour and a half. I needed to get out of the house and catch up on some emails and stuff. So, big news this morning. It was teased yesterday from both the Marvel Twitter channel and the Square Enix video game official Twitter channel. But they promised a big announcement today, and they were not lying. They dropped a teaser trailer this morning, and as we suspected, it was a team up between Marvel and Square Enix. They have signed a deal, a multi-year partnership. So Square Enix is going to be making multiple Marvel games, I think, over the next few years. In the same way, Electronic Arts has the rights to make Star Wars games for like a 10-year deal. I don't know how long or how exclusive the Square Enix deal is, but they did announce the very first game, and it's the Avengers. They're finally making a legit Avengers game, and we're not talking like Marvel Ultimate Alliance where the Avengers are in it. We're talking like Avengers. Like the Avengers logo was there. They showed the Cap shield. They showed Iron Man's gauntlet in this teaser. It was like a cinematic teaser. There was no gameplay or anything. We have no idea what type of game it is, but we do know a few things. Also, Thor's hammer was there, and it was narrated by a girl who's talking about like reassembling the Avengers. So it almost feels like it's a post-Civil War sort of scenario, or something's happened and the Avengers have disassembled. But anyways, we do know this. It's a Square Enix published game, and it's developed, and this is the most exciting part, it's developed by Crystal Dynamics, the developers behind Tomb Raider and Rise of the Tomb Raider, which are both friggin' awesome games. Rise of the Tomb Raider, when it released as a timed exclusive for Xbox One last year, was my game of the year. Loved it. I loved it. I think I recorded, well, the first Tomb Raider, I recorded a complete gameplay walkthrough for my YouTube channel. The second one, I just put a few levels up, maybe the ending and the beginning and some parts. I didn't actually record the whole game. I just didn't have time. But totally worth playing if you haven't. It's co-developed, this is also interesting, by Eidos-Montréal, the makers of Deus Ex Human Revolution and Deus Ex Mankind Divided. I loved Deus Ex Human Revolution. It brought me into that franchise. Now, however, Mankind Divided kind of like just fell under the radar. It just came out and everyone kind of forgot about it. I didn't enjoy it. I tried playing it for like an hour, but the controls didn't jive with me, and it was weird because I really did like Human Revolution, and I dug most of the gameplay for the most part, but Mankind Divided, I couldn't get into it. I didn't like it. The shooting felt off. I didn't like the restrictions, and I don't know. It felt weird. Couldn't get into it. It also could just be a subject of me having far less time to play games these days. But anyways, big budget AAA Marvel games coming out. Marvel's finally taking games seriously. That's my entrance, but it's a bit. I'll have to take the second entrance because there are cars blocking it. Anyway, years ago on GameRant.com, I think it was on GameRant, I wrote an article saying, where are the great Marvel games? Like DC Entertainment and Warner Bros. Interactive were making these Batman Arkham games. And the Batman Arkham games, for the most part, like they are like Game of the Year contenders. They are like the highest level of AAA game making. So why the hell wasn't Marvel doing the same thing? You go back and Marvel was making these awful movie tie-ins with Sega for like the cheapest budgets, very short production times, and they were awful and they were embarrassing and they were tarnishing the brand. And thankfully, and maybe this was Disney taking over, but they just cut that shit out and ended that deal. I think the Thor tie-in video game for the first Thor movie might be one of the worst video games ever made with like a branded character. I could not believe how bad that was. I gave it like a 1 out of 10. Awful freaking game. I had to review that nonsense. So Marvel wasn't taking games seriously, but now it seems like they finally are. And not like this Marvel Heroes Online free-to-play nonsense where they try to re-release the game by adding a year to the end. No, they're making real games, and they announced at E3, they have, I think it was at E3, they had the partnership with Sony, so they're making an exclusive Spider-Man game for PS4. I'm sure you've seen it. It looks awesome. Like I'm hoping it's going to be like a legit the Spider-Man game, like was it Shattered Dimensions was the good one, and Edge of Time was the crappy one? I forget. I think it was Shattered Dimensions was the good one, but we need a game like that or better. It's unfortunate it's only coming for exclusive to the PS4, but if Sony's helping pay for that, then good for them. Telltale's jumping in. They're making a Guardians of the Galaxy game, which is clearly inspired by the film, so they are wonderful storytellers. I'm not a fan of their game engine, and I think it's really buggy and dated, but they are wonderful storytellers. They did a tremendous job by all accounts with the Batman game, offering their own sort of take on that lore and that character and his history. So if they can do the same thing for Guardians of the Galaxy, and if they can use more characters from the comics that the movies aren't using, I'm very excited for that. I'll play it just for the story. And now, legitimate Avengers game with Square Enix. They're partnering with different developers and publishers to make the best possible games for each characters. That's awesome. Oh man, of course, how can I forget? Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. They're working with Capcom to make a new MVC game, and no one thought that was going to happen. But Capcom and Marvel, someone must have stepped out and make that happen. Again, the problem there though is we have seen no X-Men characters, and X-Men characters have always been extremely important for the MVC games. But of course, the business side of it is that everything's kind of spearheaded by the films, and if Marvel Entertainment doesn't own the rights to the X-Men, Fox does. They're not going to help promote those characters, and I think that's why we've seen no X-Men game stuff yet. There were no X-Men characters in that Avengers trailer. There were no X-Men characters in any of the material so far for Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, and there are no X-Men games on the horizon that we know of. No AAA games anyway, so hopefully that'll change. I'm hoping Marvel and Fox will figure that out in the next couple of years, because I mentioned this in one of the previous videos, but I interviewed Scott Derrickson on Monday, I think, and he told me, I asked him, like, look, you're in this franchise, but you're also a big fan. What do you want to see most in terms of like new characters that we haven't seen yet? And at first he started talking about Moon Knight, just because it's been making a lot of headlines recently, and James Gunn, the writer and director of Guardians of the Galaxy, said he wanted to see a Moon Knight movie as well. And then he changed his answer, and Scott said, no, forget that. My real answer is this. I want to see the Fantastic Four get another like real chance on the screen within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I'm like, yes, you got to do that. But of course, Fox owns it. But man, if they can make some sort of deal, I mean, Fox and Marvel are co-producing multiple Marvel television, Fox FX TV series. Legion is the first of them. There's another X-Men show on the way. You can read all about that at SquareEnix.com. We've learned some more details about the characters who may or may not be in it. Not really specific characters, but there will be X-Men characters, like famous characters in it. But it's going to be from the perspective of humans looking, like, falling into the world of mutants, not the other way around. Whereas the X-Men was always from the perspective of the mutants, this is from the perspective of non-mutants, which is a weird approach. I kind of wish they just did a full-on X-Men TV series with all the characters if it's not going to be connected to the movies, but whatever, we'll see how that shakes out. But anyways, exciting stuff on the Marvel video game front. Finally, years and years and years of waiting and suffering through crappy games, and they're finally going to take it seriously. I really hope Crystal and Eidos get the time and money to make that properly. I mean, and if it's given that those two developers are in charge, it's probably going to be a third-person action RPG, which is very, very exciting. However, Deus Ex and Tomb Raider are single-player games, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I feel like if you're making an Avengers game, it's a team-based game. I feel like you really need to have some team play. That is, of course, if you are controlling the Avengers. It could be the case where you're playing like a new character who is brought in to join the younger Avengers, new Avengers, or you're helping reassemble it as an outsider, but we'll see. Anyways, share your thoughts. What are you most excited to see from all the Marvel games in development? What future games do you want to see from Square Enix if they do have a long-term partnership? And if you could pick any sort of Marvel character, or Marvel team-up, or Marvel story from the comics to become a game that hasn't been announced yet, let me know as well. I love talking about this stuff, and I'm sure we're going to have plenty of articles about this on ScreamAt.com. So until next time, like and subscribe. Cheers.